Hi, good afternoon. Thanks, Dana. My name is Alizee. I'm from the Turks and Caicos Islands and part of a very small nonprofit NGO with very little finance in our history. And so it's been quite a journey to get to where we are and some of the different projects that we've been able to do. And turns out I found out I'm relatively good at finding creative ways to get people to give us a little bit of money and to get involved and to connect people with our projects. So I'll talk to you a little bit about it today. I'm going to try and focus on a couple examples. Just as a background, we've got about 13 years of environmental advocacy and the only NGO in the islands focused on the environment. And until a year and a half ago, we were volunteer only. I was given a position in February 2021. And so it's been quite a journey on the way. But we first got SCTLD in 2019. At that point, I didn't know anything about coral diseases. Thankfully, in 2018, through AGRA, we learned about benthic stuff. And the first step was, okay, well, how do we get out there? The Turks and Caicos is quite a large, expansive area, and it's expensive. The reefs are not accessible from the beach. So how do we finance the monitoring and getting there? So that was the first part, was figuring out monitoring and treatment. So we started with outreach. Oh, I forgot to stop this thing, sorry. So we started with outreach, and the idea there was just engaging as many people as possible, just going to all the dive shops. One of the dive shops in particular said, Alizee, you've got a spot on the boat. So me and one other person that we trained were able to go out for free. And originally, without that, we wouldn't have had any monitoring data on the spread of the disease. So that was a huge part of that initial effort. And then engaging hotels and different corporate businesses on the island and trying to get them, find out what their passion is, what they're interested in, and then relate it back to the coral reefs, because as for many of you, I'm sure, the reefs are the source of absolutely everything in the Turks and Caicos. So whatever you care about, it's going to be connected to the reef. If you care about money, you care about the reef. If you care about food and sustenance, you care about the reef. Coastal protection, big hotels, everything comes back. I mean, for us, literally the ground we stand on is ancient coral reef systems. So it's connecting people back to that. And in the first 4 months, we were able to raise about 50 grand. And that was just to pay for fuel, get the boat out, get some initial treatment in, and get involved that way. So I also, before moving on, started partnering with Ocean Alchemists. So we agreed to test some of their products. And in exchange, we were given quite a lot of the base 2Bs. So just being open to partnerships, to working back and forth, really allowed us to get access to certain things that we may not have been able to before. But actually, one of my, Dina asked me to kind of think about some of the more successful projects we've had. And the partnership that we've created with Mount Gay Rum, even though Turks and Caicos and Barbados are pretty far apart from each other, has been really, really great. So we, last year during World Ocean Month, the wine seller, the local distributors contacted us and said, you know, we're trying to do some environmental activism and we'll give you $2 for every drink purchased in certain places. And that led to rum-powered research, which has been one of my most successful plans. So over the last years, we've created a few different itineraries. I come from a dive instructor background and I've worked on the liveaboards, so that gave me an in there. But connecting with organizations or liveaboards like this was a wonderful way to get out there. In exchange for a few talks in the evenings, you can get guests who are coming specifically to dive with the experts. Still trying to think of a better phrase than meaningful tourism, something a little more pizzazz, but I haven't got there yet. But rum-powered research ended up raising over $28,000 that allowed us to go out for a full week and do data collection, surveys, and treatment on East Caicos, which is actually the largest uninhabited island in the region, and with very anthropogenically unaffected reefs. So we had been there in 2018. So one of the only places, I just need to find the time to go through all the data, that we have that comparison of pre and post SCTLD. So rum-powered research we use that to leverage other companies. So I contacted lots of other rum companies and leverage them to kind of get involved. And that's something that we've trademarked and that we're going to be using year and year. And it's something that can grow and can go from something really small to something really big, just through kind of grabbing the attention. On a small island in a lot of the places we live, tourists come and they love to drink rum, right? So they come, they drink their daiquiris, they drink their rum punch. And if you can somehow get that to help finance your work, that would be really helpful. And then the second thing is, from the onset, I've always said we need to get some of these corals out of the water. They were just disappearing so quickly. And I promised myself within 2 years that we would have some kind of gene banking. It took 2 years, 3 months, and 2 days, but island time. And we finally got there. We wrote so many grants and none of them came through. We're a tiny nonprofit. We could only be eligible for a small percentage of what our annual fundraising capacity is, which is less than 100,000. So if you're getting 30% of that, you're not going to get very far. And then we decided to change the tactic a little. And I think this for me has been the game changer. Is we wrote a grant as a feasibility study. So we changed the language. Instead of saying, give me money to build a coral research center, said, give me money to build a pilot system and learn how to take care of coral. And I just happened to decide that while we're learning, we're also going to gene bank because, well, time is critical right now. So it's kind of a necessity. But we were successful. So this year in 2022, we got a grant from the John Ellerman Foundation. And we got that through the creation of this feasibility study project. And so for any small organizations that are trying to get grants, I thought that this was our most successful way. It did, of course, mean that we had to partner with somebody who actually knows how to take care of corals and what's happening. And so we partnered with the Reef Institute, who have been absolutely amazing. And in our grant, they were the scientific council. And I think that was the censure. So not only calling it a pilot study or a feasibility study, but also having a really strong partnership involved in that kind of gives the foundation confidence in your project. So that was a really big part of it for us. I've got to admit, so far, it was a $150,000 grant for 2 years. And that involves part of it for human resources, part of it for scientific counsel, part of it for actual physical structures and equipment. At the moment, we have the full system built, and we've only spent about 50 grand. And we're doing stuff that's quite incredible that I thought would have cost a lot more. Now, 50 grand is not nothing, no doubt, but it's more accessible than 150 or 200 or $300,000. And we currently have 400 corals that are in situ that we rescued off a pier that was being destroyed. And about 100 of them are currently in the system, but we have to scale them in stages so that we don't overwhelm the system. But I think my two big things have been kind of somehow, I mean, it's a tourist destination. People love to drink. Don't know what else to tell you. So I made cocktails and conservation. It just kept going with that. Now Tito's gave me $1,000 last month, but that's pretty awesome for me. Turks Head Brewery sponsors a lot of our projects. And so just finding ways to find what those different companies are interested in and then leveraging that back to fundraising. Corporate sponsorship has been a big part. Admittedly, without South Bank, for example, we would not have a facility. So that part was donated. Finding a development or a resort or something that, I mean, developers are the enemy, if we're completely honest. So they need to make some effort. And often this is the kind of thing where you can get somebody to want to be a part of it because then they get their logo on environmental work. And this was just a last little thing because those corals that were being put at the dump, it took us 2 days. We only had 2 days to rescue them all. But yeah, essentially getting creative, finding little ways to engage different people, businesses on the islands, and then basically just keep on begging and talking and passion. I mean, the fact that 30 people in 3 boats showed up to help me was incredible. And it happened and we did it really quickly. I have a lot of captains who will donate some time as well. But I think my biggest takeaway is just get creative. Nothing is too small. Like I thought I was going to make 3 or 4 grand off the rum project. And we ended up being able to finance a full week of research. And that was quite incredible. So get creative. And then just always, I keep saying, we've said this a lot today. I mean, action really is the antidote to despair. Like you feel like you're doing something, you need to do something. Well, if you want action, then you need some compassion and you can get people to be inspired that way. And that's it. Thank you.